of seeking a world where people should be judged not by their color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Just something to think about today as we have so much turmoil in today's world. Now on to one of my favorite subjects, which is budgets and what we're working through. We have a capital budget and a capital reserve fund, and in examining past budgets and contributions to the reserve fund, I find that both have been historically underfunded, that too often previous elected commissioners have kicked the can down the road. And unfortunately, this underfunding makes it more difficult for us today. Why? I think it's our responsibility as representatives, as commissioners, to take care of today's needs, but equally so, to set the conditions for our county to be successful over the long run, to set the table for those who come after us 8 or 12 years down the road. The capital budget and the reserve fund are important for setting those conditions. This year's 2024 budget proposal is set to receive $9 million less than last year. That is over a 14% decrease. That is significant. That capital budget pays for our roads, and we're going to hear more about that today. It pays for many other things too. Clearly, the evidence shows that the capital budget has not been adequately funded for the needs of our community and our citizens, and the capital reserves also have not been adequately funded to set the conditions to be able to pay for school construction, school building modernization that's needed in a number of areas, particularly to meet American Disabilities Act requirements, where we're short in some areas, or Title IX requirements. It's just not there. Other investments in our future are needed too. Like it or not, the courthouse will need a major renovation with significant expansion or possibly even a new building. We need to be thinking hard about setting dollars aside each year so that we have a good fund for these major expenditures in the very near future. I could go on. I just want to reiterate, we have a responsibility to show leadership and to govern responsibly, not just to set the conditions for today and to pay attention to those that are criticizing or asking for more or asking for less or looking for tax decreases. We need to think about the long haul for today and tomorrow. And I think that's incumbent upon us to do as we grapple with this year's budget. We have an opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Harvey. Well stated. Anything else? Okay. Typical busy week, a number of things I'd like to report on and bring to your attention. First, I received a letter from Carol Long from Boonesborough. She's the chair lady, actually the mayor's wife, for the Boonesborough American Legion parade and festivities on Sunday, May 28th. We have a application here. If the commissioners, it's your pleasure, if you want to participate in the parade or ride in the parade or what have you, maybe something we want to consider. And there is a deadline and an application here to be filled out to do so. And I think we have until please complete the attached form and return no later than May 22nd. So we have a month or so. Number of other things. Last Thursday evening, I had the pleasure of participating with Dr. Savine and some of the school board members with the Washington County Public School Years of Service Awards at the Boyd Michael Career Center. A number of the teachers were recognized anywhere from 5 years to 35 years. It was a nice event, and they were well deserving and honored through that evening's events. Also on Friday evening, I participated in the Hagerstown Community College annual tribute fundraiser. About 500 people inside the Ark, which was extraordinarily decorated as usual for such a fine upscale event. And this year, instead of doing a host, the tribute was the student body, the student success, and it was hosted by B.J. Getz and Jim Holzaffel and their families. So a very nice event. On Friday morning, I attended a memorial service, and I just thought it'd be noteworthy to recognize the life of Eileen Wiggins. Eileen was 98 years old and passed away back in, I think it was November. Actually, no, February. Just a couple things that was probably the funniest memorial service I ever went to. If you knew Eileen, she was quite feisty. She was still driving at 98 years of age, living by herself and very self-sufficient. And if you knew Eileen, you could understand why. And just some of the things. She retired from the state of Maryland in 1983 after 25 years of service. At 25 years of service at various agencies, including being the first female district court commissioner in Washington County. She served for a number of years on the Washington County Election Board and retired as a volunteer at the Washington County Sheriff's Office, Maryland State Police Barracks in Hagerstown, Motor Vehicle Administration in Hagerstown, and the VA Hospital in Martinsburg. So Eileen had a life of service to Washington County, and I'd like to just in post recognize Eileen for her years of service and commitment to this community. Two other things I have kind of on a, I like to report on our church bulletin. It seems like one Sunday a month we get some interesting things on the back of the bulletin, and Sundays was no different. And if you'll indulge me, not everyone will be home this Easter. Here's a big salute, a huge hug, and a thank you, and a happy Easter to our troops. And the other flip side of it was happiness comes easier when you stop complaining about your problems and start being grateful for all the problems you don't have. So,
That's good.
thank you.
I like that.
With that, any other comments or reports? Hearing none, we'll move into staff comments, and I think Scott Hobbs is up first. Good morning, Scott.
Good morning. Scott Hobbs, Director of Engineering. The board received information regarding the 2023 Transportation Priorities Letter, and I'm seeking consensus to move forward with submitting the letter to the Maryland Department of Transportation as drafted. The county, along with the city of Hagerstown, hold a consolidated transportation program meeting with MDOT every year in the fall to discuss transportation priorities. The county and city provide a letter to MDOT in the spring identifying priorities for discussion and consideration in the state's CTP. I-81 widening continues to be the #1 priority, followed by the transportation systems operations on the interstates and interchange improvements at I-70 and 65. The I-81 project's currently in the CTP with construction in the out years, and the bridges are under construction at I-70 and 65 as the final phase of the interchange work. As the first phase of the interchange work, excuse me. The letter outlines these projects as well as the airport, transit, coordination with projects with MDOT, including ARC, Appalachian Regional Commission project funds, and various railroad, sidewalk, and bridge studies and projects. I'd like to thank Andrew Eshelman, our Director of Public Works, Kevin Cerrone, our Transit Director, Neil Doran, our Airport Director, and Matt Mullinex, the Executive Director of the Metropolitan Planning Organization, for their work on this and their contribution to the letter and assistance with the presentation every year in the fall. Projects listed in the Transportation Priorities Letter have remained consistent over the years. So with that, if there's any comments or questions.
Is that a consensus or a vote or motion?
It was consensus, wasn't it? Or
You can do it either way.
A motion to approve.
Second.
motion and second to approve as submitted. All in favor by saying aye. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Other staff?
Nothing this morning.
John?
Thank you, President Farr. Good morning, Commissioners. Just a few things. Board of County Commissioners received a letter from First Energy. First Energy is going to apply for a grant from the Department of Energy for Grid Resilience and Innovation Partnership Grant. Their proposed use of those grant funds is to enhance reliability of their electrical distribution system in targeted communities with Potomac Edison, including Washington County. And they've asked the county commissioners for a letter of support. So I'm asking you, if you want to, there's no financial request, just a letter of support for that grant request.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion and second to approve as submitted. All in favor by saying aye.
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 Okay. Just two other things. Commissioner Wagner mentioned it, but I want to thank our purchasing department. Obviously, April was purchasing month, and they had a lot of different activities, including the luncheon last week and some training opportunities and some other things. So I want to thank them for that and for all the work they do all year long to make sure that we can procure what we need to continue to provide the services for Washington County. And just a reminder, there'll be no county commissioner meeting next week because of the holiday. Our next meeting will be April 18th. That's all I have.
Are we allowed to ask a question of the administrator?
Sure, anytime.
It depends, but
It depends.
John, just a quick question. The legislature's moving forward with codifying the marijuana legislation, the rules of the road, and I'm wondering, where are we at with that, and are we gonna be looking at any zoning, restrictions,
yeah.
where and how one can do that, or, you know, what our authority's gonna be, or are we gonna get a briefing in open session on that? Or?
Yeah, we will. I mean, our staff is looking at that. I need to sit down and talk to Jill and see what their recommendations are. So we will come back. We will come back and brief the commissioners probably maybe in the next few weeks as to what they're thinking, what we should be doing in this case. So
That'd be part of
we'll do
the
that.
comp plan that comes out of the planning commission.
no, it'll be separate from that. So there'll be more to come on that.
Okay, and then a question for you and I think our county attorney, whoever has the best knowledge to answer it, I guess. The legislature has been moving forward to provide more authority to the state to override local concerns about the impact of utilities, state board on utilities. If we have historical structures, we have environmental issues, we have our own zone plans, those would all be negated based upon the authority that the legislature is looking at empowering the state with. And, you know, is there going to be any way for us to legally look at challenging that, is my question, if it does go through? And secondarily, a similar authoritarian effort to attack local control and the ability of counties to manage their own affairs and school boards is to basically take over our school boards and eliminate their ability to control local events. And I'm just, you know, do we have any options at all to challenge either of those? You probably don't have an answer now, but it's something we need to be thinking about.
That's a rather complex question that touches on a variety of areas. Generally, the counties, generally a local government's authority to zone is derived from the state. Presumably, the state legislature can make changes to what powers they grant to local governments. Specifically in light of some of the public utilities situations, there are certain areas that the legislature has said that the Public Service Commission is the sole regulatory authority for some of those things. Some of those include generating stations, overhead transmission lines. The county was involved in a challenge to that authority that went to the Supreme Court of Maryland The court reiterated that the Public Service Commission is the regulatory authority for those types of things, and the county cannot exercise zoning authority for some of those types of things.
So are there other entities within our county that would have standing to challenge that we could work with? Communities of color, for example, that might be adversely impacted, or environmental concerns that we could bring under some other code, either in the federal courts, to block it.
We'd have to give that further consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
3 questions, not 1.
He directed one to the county, and one to the county attorney, so that was good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. At this time, we'll open it up for citizens' participation. We have anyone here this morning that would like to come forward? Hearing none and seeing none, we'll move on. And so next item on the agenda is a public hearing, 2023 Agricultural Land Preservation District applications. Good morning, Chris Boggs.
Good morning, Commissioners. Chris Boggs, Department of Planning and Zoning. This morning, through this public hearing, I bring forward the 2023 Agricultural Land Preservation District applications. Before we get started, I just want to let you know, after speaking with the landowner this week, we are actually down to 8 property owner applications. So strike the Anderson application from the list. Yes.
Excuse me for a second. I jumped out of line here. We do have a protocol and a procedure to open up a public hearing. So if you don't mind, let me
Sure. Yeah.
backtrack here for a moment. Public hearing opening statement, Agricultural Land Preservation District applications. The purpose of this hearing is to hear public testimony concerning the matter. The procedure is as follows. County staff will introduce the matter, after which the hearing will be open for the public. Comment and testimony. Each speaker will be given a maximum of 3 minutes to testify. After everyone who wishes to speak has done so, the hearing will close. The commissioners may then discuss the issue and take any action that they deem appropriate, including adoption, rejection of the proposal, or they may take the issue under advisement and deliberate at a later date. Mr. Boggs, would you please introduce the matter? Thank you.
All right, so the 2023 Ag Preservation District applications. As I was saying previously, the Anderson property is to be struck from the list of owner applicants. It ended up not meeting one of the qualifications, which was minimum size. We found out that there was a portion of the property that was used for commercial activities, and the property was already legally only 20 acres in size, so taking anything away from it would disqualify it from applying, as 20 acres is the minimum size in that situation. So each year, throughout the year, I collect applications to enter the Agricultural Land Preservation District program. And this time of year, I bring these to the commissioners for review and approval. The Ag District program is a completely county-run, county-administered program. And the main idea of it is that in return for making a 10-year commitment to preserve their properties, i.e. keep it in agriculture, no additional residential, commercial, or industrial activities can occur on the property. In return for that 10-year commitment, the county will give property tax credits on their county property taxes. So it does not affect state property taxes, just county. And that is, they will, essentially it is calculated as taxes not collected. So it's a tax break. And it's calculated based on an ag component and a residential component, where the property taxes levied on agricultural land and agricultural buildings they're basically wiped clean for that category, and then they can receive up to $696 off of their residential component, which consists of the taxes levied on any dwellings and home site values on the property. These ag districts initially are for 10 years, although there is a caveat in the ordinance that states that after 5 years, if the landowner chooses, they can terminate the district for any reason they'd like. And then after the 10-year commitment is met, landowners have the opportunity to renew their ag districts in 5-year increments. The main purpose of the ag district program from its onset was to be kind of a stepping stone program for farmers and landowners who wish to pursue permanent easements. So at this point, we have, for this year, over 300 ag districts in the program, 300 individual ag districts throughout the county. So this year, we're looking at 8. You have the lists in front of you. And this, it's generally, the fiscal impact is at about $12 per acre per year for each ag district. And which comes to, if you count these 8 ag districts, we are talking about 683 acres and $8,196 roughly. The calculations are done on the tax credits each year, right around this time, actually in the middle of them right now. And they are then submitted to the State Department of Assessments and Taxation. And these new applicants this year, and of course every other applicant, will see these tax credits deducted from their property taxes they receive in July. Of course, prior to this, the Ag Advisory Board must have approved the ag districts, which they did. And so now I bring them to you. I guess at this point, we are all concurrences or alternatives. Of course, you can deny any of the pending 10-year districts. And that opens up any questions.
How many do we have waiting?
For the ag district program,
Yeah.
just these 8 for this
Just
year.
these
As I
8,
I
okay.
compile them each year throughout the year, and then we bring them as a batch. So these 8 are the ones waiting. I have spoken with a couple other interested landowners that I have put on my 2024 list. But as of right now, we just have these 8 waiting. And they are part of the 332 ag districts that currently are in.
Now, Chris, did they give up their development rights for this?
Well, essentially, their development rights are temporarily surrendered, I guess. Now, they do still have the option to take a family lot or or child lots, similar to the Maryland Ag Land Preservation Program.
Yeah. You know what I'd like to see, this is a comment for staff too, is an updated map of Washington County with all the land preservation colored out, so it's very easy to read.
Yeah.
All the land preservation, where it's at, and then work in conjunction with PR to put that out there.
Yeah, we have been working at the staff level on a couple different maps and sort of a kind of a land preservation rundown that we plan on handing to all you commissioners.
I think we need to get it out to the public too.
But that, yeah, and that is available on our website. We have the protected,
updated with
we
all
have
the-
a protected lands map, and it is on the county GIS page on the website. That is, it is updated regularly.
It
So
just needs to be pushed, not passively out there. It needs to be pushed so our community gets it fed to them and they understand it, okay? And that might mean we need to pay for it to be boosted on Facebook or elsewhere, but I think it's an important element. I agree wholeheartedly with Commissioner Wagner on that, and showing all kinds of preservation that we have and try and make it easy to understand. I think we all would agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I give that speech once a week because of the big buildings.
Right.
And people just don't realize how much land we do have preserved and how much is coming. If we had the money, we could do a whole lot more.
Can we,
Commissioner
I don't mean to interrupt you, but can we hold that discussion, because we're right in the middle of a public hearing?
We're out of order.
So I just want to make sure that we get back into that, and then we can pick this up discussion. So I mean, I agree with both of you, Sue, by the way.
It's too late to take it back, but continue.
No, it's fine.
You're finished with your comments?
I'm finished with my comments, so I will cede it to the public for any public
Okay.
comments.
So we will now open the hearing for public comment. Anyone wishing to testify from,
My bad.
please come forward, give us your name and address, and tell us why you'd like us, and what you'd like us to know. So I'll go ahead and open it up.
No one here?
Nope.
It's all staff but Paulie.
Okay. Last chance. Anyone?
Please.
So hearing no public comment, I'll open it up now to the commissioners.
I've already said everything. My bad, but you heard it.
Well,
Repeat it.
Randy, I have the same conversation, but probably a couple times a week with landowners, members of the public, things like that. I agree. It probably does need a bolder public face. So we'll do what we can, what we need to try to get it done, and I'll pass the word along when I get back to the office.
So this is a county program.
Yes.
Okay.
It used to be a state program. Then the state in 2012 ceded it over to the individual counties. Most other counties dropped the program, but Washington County elected to keep it. And so I think we're one of 3 or 4 other counties that still have an ag district program.
Just two comments. My perspective is 10 years is too short. I think the county and our citizens have an interest in having that extended. The one thing I heard consistently throughout my campaign, and I continue to hear it, is the desire. I was talking to my Uber driver yesterday in town, others when I'm going to fire hall meetings, etc. One thing I hear consistently is a desire to protect our farmland and our rural character. People that live in Hagerstown love to be able to go out and see what's going, the countryside, the orchards, the farmland. That's why they like it here. And I just think the more we can do in that regard, to extend this and to find a way for the county to be able to fund more is one of the things I would love to be able to accomplish over the next 4 years. And I know we've got tremendous stressors on our budget, but it's just another item that I heard consistently. And Randy and I've talked about this extensively. There's a big demand out there for this.
Well, the one thing we must keep in mind here is that these programs are voluntary, and so it's, we don't, it's not, we're not forcing anyone to get into the land preservation. It's all, if they come to me, and we get it out there. I mean, the programs are well known in the agricultural community. And, so it's if they want to sign up for the ag districts, or again, pursue a permanent easement, these are voluntary programs. So while the general public may want have a strong desire to preserve these lands, the landowners that own the
But
properties
we have a waiting list, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Right, that's my point.
Right, after 10 years, is the renewal automatic, or they have to
No,
reapply?
well, what happens is once we get to the 10-year point, I send letters out to every ag district that's about to expire and say, look, do you wish to renew? So
It's almost automatic if they
it
agree.
essentially is, yeah. I mean, I get a list every year from our from GIS people that keep track of that, and they send me the list of existing ag districts that are up for renewal. The first year we did it, it was a large sum of them back in 2019, and so every 5 years, basically, I have a giant list, but every year in between, it's a little shorter. But yeah, I send those letters out every year for those who are having their ag districts about to expire.
How many times can they renew?
They can renew
Forever.
indefinitely until the program's gone, basically.
It changes ownership?
If it changes ownership, the new owner is subject to the restrictions of the ag district until it expires. At which case, the new landowner can apply to renew for the 5-year increment, or they can choose to terminate.
What are we looking for, a motion or
We need to close.
consensus?
Says recommended motion to
Yeah.
approve?
Yes, the recommended motion.
Motion to approve.
Well, need to close the public hearing
Oh,
first.
sorry. Thank you.
We're all out of order here this morning. Everybody's jumpy. Any other comments or questions by the commissioners? Hearing none, I declare the public hearing is now concluded. Now, we can,
Motion to approve.
further discussion or motion?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve as submitted. Ready to vote? All in favor by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, next item is presentation of the 2033 capital budget, draft number 2. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Michelle Gordon, Chief Financial Officer.
Kelsey Mace, Deputy Director of Budget and Finance.
Okay, before I go into the presentation, I just wanted to address and provide some additional information related to Commissioner Harvey's concerns. I do agree with him that long-term deferral of maintenance and construction projects for roads, bridges, and buildings is simply not sustainable. And the fiscal year 23 plan that was approved last year included $41.4 million for fiscal year 24. The plan that we actually submitted to you this fiscal year included $56 million in projects, so it's a $14.5 million increase in the actual plan. The main reason for the decrease from fiscal year 23's approved plan to fiscal year 24's approved plan of about $9 million relates to the completion of 2 projects in our water quality fund, the Smithsburg wastewater treatment plant, and our upgrades, as well as funding that was approved in the ARPA fund for capacity management. So the majority of those projects were actually funded by state and federal grant funding of about $17.2 million. So we saw a decrease in funding from federal and state sources of about $17.2 million. Offsetting that, we actually had increases in local funding from the county of about $7.8 million, and that included $5.3 million from CIP reserves. So although there was a decrease from fiscal year 23 to 24, it's related to those 2 large projects.
Would it be fair to say that we're still from projects that are waiting and are put on the back burner, we're still short on capital funding? Would that be safe to say?
Absolutely, it would be safe to say that.
So we could always use more because we got projects that are waiting that can't be done.
That's correct. And we're continuing to defer projects for roads and bridges, and we're unfunding our road overlay significantly.
As we defer and waiting to do them, the price increases, correct?
Exactly. We saw 40 to 100% increases in our construction projects this year. So as we're deferring those projects, the costs are increasing substantially.
Okay.
On to the presentation. Draft 1 of the capital improvement budget was presented to you on February the 14th, 2023. Based on feedback from both county commissioners and requesters, minor changes have been made. Changes include rearranging programmed funding for HCC projects, and that has no effect on the local contribution. Other changes relate to moving up of the Williamsport Library project funding based on the timing of the grant application that they would like to submit in May. This affects timing of the use of capital reserves. And I just want to stress that that project is still not included in fiscal year 24. We moved it up from fiscal year 27 to fiscal year 25. It's still dependent on grant funding and other factors such as site location selection, architectural design, and many other things. It simply shows in the plan that timing was moved up and based on potential grant funding timeline. So no changes in the amount of bond funding for the general fund or the general fund contribution for any of the 10 years was included in the plan. The total fiscal impact for fiscal year 24's capital budget is $56,004,000. We're approving fiscal year 24's appropriations only. The plan is definitely flexible. It covers a 10-year period, with the first 10 years of the plan being for fiscal year 24. And at this time, I'd like to open it up to discussions regarding any recommended changes.
Comments?
I'd just like to commend you and your staff for the hard work you're doing and making these regular adjustments and keeping us well informed, and your superb responsiveness to our inquiries to get more data and clarification. I really appreciate it, and let your staff know that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle, Kelsey, I echo that too. I think every time the phone rings, you're wondering, which commissioner is that one? So, but there's times I just walk into your room and you're always dropping stuff to answer my questions. So to you and your staff, I appreciate your efforts as well.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you being outspoken, telling how it is. Don't sugarcoat it. That's what I like.
What I like it is.
I don't like all the new tabs because the book's that big now, but what can you say? So, I appreciate it all, I really do.
All right, thank you, I appreciate it.
Likewise, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next item is FY '24 highway budget. Morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Commissioners. Andrew Eshelman, Director of Public Works.
Zane Rao, Deputy Director of Highways.
We're here before you to give an overview of the Highway Department budget. The Highway Department is its own fund, even though the funding does have some state contributions through highway user revenues, which I'll talk a little bit more about, and the general fund. So obviously, the Highway Department maintains the roads and bridges in the county, but also stormwater management ponds and storm drainage and conveyance systems, line striping, signal maintenance, as well as doing fleet management. So it's more than just the roads that we drive on each day. There was an increase of about 10% in the overall budget. A lot of that was attributed to the COLA and the wages that increases that were given. Really, as far as staff requests, we'll let Zane go into that. There wasn't a lot that was added. I did want to come back and touch on something of particular interest each year to us, which is the highway user revenue. So since last year, there was a bill that was passed at the state level that prevented a sunset clause from happening, which would have resulted in a reduction of revenue for us. And so while we had hoped it was going to be more, the share that we received went from about $2 million to $2.5 million, which, to give some perspective, back in 2009, we were at $9 million, which was almost the entire funding for the highway department. So it's something that we're closely monitoring as well, because if you've also followed the news, you saw that the governor announced that Maryland would be implementing the California's clean air rule. So that means by 2035, all new vehicles, light-duty vehicles, passenger vehicles in Maryland will be zero emission. So obviously that's going to affect the revenue that the state collects if they don't make some changes there. So it's kind of a well of diminishing returns, if you will, year to year. So it's something we'll monitor, and obviously in the highway department and the county as a whole, we'll have to figure out how we will meet those new requirements.
May I interrupt you a moment, and I apologize. So you're saying we're going to get 2.5 million in HUR, highway user revenue, for this
Correct.
fiscal year?
This.
How much does it cost to pave 1 mile?
Scott's here in the audience. I'll have him give the latest numbers. I know for chip seal, it's about, 300,000 a mile. And Scott, what are we at now for
Paving.
paving?
Paving's $300,000 a mile, and chip seal's about $50,000.
Okay, 50,000, okay.
So
Yeah, 300,000.
300,000 to pave, so you do, that's about 369, how many miles that were, of how many total miles do we have?
We have 900 total miles, and I said we do about 30 miles a chip a year. And Scott, we have, depending on how we do the overlay, there's various patching and crack fill, but how many miles are we at for this year, Scott?
So if my math is right,
Yeah.
we're going to be able to pave, at best case scenario, 2.5 million, we'd only be able to pave 7 miles at 300,000. And how many total miles do we have?
900.
Well, you got about 1,900 lane miles. What
could you do
Andrew's
both?
alluding to,
Right.
is center
Both
line.
ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm getting back to, what we've alluded earlier, that we're behind on our capital improvement projects. So under that formula of 900, 1,800 miles, it's every, how many hundreds of years before we come back and pave the road in front of a citizen's house?
Yeah, I think we were at about one every 50 years or so last year when I looked at it, and costs have gone up since then.
And
The ideal, lifespan for asphalt is about 20 years. The chip seal is about every 7. So we try to do our best, but, for the citizens, obviously, they would prefer more asphalt and full depth work. We would as well, but we have to make the best decisions with the resources that we're given. So that's kind of what we do to work with. The engineering department, they oversee the pavement maintenance contract. Highways does a lot of the maintenance. We work together on some of the preparations for the asphalt and chip
thank you,
contracts.
forgive my interruption.
So how many miles would we have to do each year of pavement to meet a every 10-year standard?
Every 10 years?
Or you said it was 20?
Yeah,
20
even every
on page?
20, right? So you're, let me get the calculator out here. You're going every,
About 100.
yeah, 900, right, divided by every 20, so you got to do 45 miles a
45,
year.
50 miles.
So we're only hitting maybe 1/4 to 1/3 of that.
Yes, right, and in the chip seal, again, you're caught in that cycle where it's more of a surface treatment, and so that's really should be every 7
More to
years.
preserve the road from further damage, is that correct?
Correct. It doesn't do anything structurally for improving the weight capacity and the durability. It's more or less for, the rideability and preserving what you have. It's not adding to.
So to do 40 miles a year, what would that cost be over and above what we're currently paying?
I think Scott had run those numbers. Was it like the $8 to $10 million range or somewhere for us to actually get in that
So
category?
$8 to $10 million more a year just to do what we should be doing on the roads.
Well, right now, I think we were around 4 million is what we're doing per year. Right, so you'd say you more or less need to at least double it and go beyond there to get in the recommended range for when you're treating roads on that frequency.
But over the last 10 years, we've been kicking the can down the road. So we're farther behind than, I'm not criticizing
Right.
you. Andrew
blame to the
and
staff.
Zane, you guys are doing stupendous work with the resources we are giving you. And you are, you're on the front line, okay? And I appreciate that. So none of this is criticism of anything that you guys are doing. I'm just trying to make a larger point here, okay?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Any other questions on that side before we go into some of the expenses of the operation?
Nope.
Zane?
I'd like to thank Budget and Finance staff and Highway staff for all their help in getting the budget together. When fully staffed, we've got 89 employees for roughly 1,900 lane miles. Currently, we've got 13 openings. For the last year and a half or 2 years, it's been a struggle trying to attract and hire. So, we're running short in a few of our districts. Obviously, snow removal this year, if every winter could be like this, would be great. I think we were only around 40% of our budget.
Zane, pardon me.
Yes.
I was the question, you just said 40%. What normally would we have spent on salt and maybe gas and overtime if we'd had a normal winter with more precipitation?
Normal winter, I think we have a little over $1 million in the budget. We'd have probably been around 750, 800,000
So this year we
used. And that all depends on the price of salt. Our average is down. I think this year we only bought 5,400 ton of salt. Typically, we're running around 8, and that average has been dropping.
So we only used about 40% of that budgeted million, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, if you look in your budget guide, it has it in there what the winter maintenance or the snow removal. There's this particular department code set up for that. So the FY24 budget is about 1.3 million. And that was close, actually a little bit down from where we were last year. And that's because Budget and Finance works with us and they do a rolling average based upon the prior years. So again, it's highly variable. This year it's down. Next year could be,
It could be double.
significantly over. That department code, more than probably any other, except maybe the storm damage, is the one that's more variable and beyond our control.
Yeah, what catches my attention is the 13 and short. You just can't hire them, you can't find them, right?
We've had 8 applications since the first of the year.
And, okay, so that's creating, it's not your fault, it's not my fault, just the people aren't wanting to work, I guess. But that's creating a lot more overtime, or isn't it?
It hasn't this year, but what it could have done is created more overtime and really more stress on the workforce.
If we'd have had storms and those kind of things.
Well, yeah, we're down to almost half force in South County and 6 people in Hagerstown, not counting the mechanic and the supervisor. So it just makes it more stressful. Everybody else has got to pick the load up.
And you don't think the wage increase would help recruiting any?
Well, like I say, since the first of the year, we've had 8 applications. We've interviewed 5 or 6, and I think we've hired 4.
recruitment, I think, Randy, retention is one issue, but it's recruitment and being competitive with a salary. And one of the things we've been looking at is making sure we've got the adjustments in our grade structure to make sure that we're hiring starting points, et cetera, for the different positions. And so how do we compare to AC&T for our positions in your department?
Truck driving or tractor and trailer drivers, I'm sure if you use Class A, we're way behind.
Yeah.
The smaller trucks, I mean, I think we're getting closer, pay-wise, but I think it's just, a total effect of different things. I think Commissioner Wagner, said that it's harder people don't want to work, or it's harder to find people. But I really think our pay is getting close to being competitive when you figure in the benefits.
For the truck drivers, you said way behind?
For Class B.
Class A, like AC&T, they're tanker drivers. I know they're, and any driver that's hauling gas or diesel is in a Class A license.
Right.
They're making a lot more money than what the dump truck drivers are.
But their qualifications are the same.
They're different CDLs, so the progression is the Class B, which is your dump truck. That's kind of the first step. And what all of our equipment operators and MEO, we call them MEO 2s and 3s, have that. Then what Zane's talking about, the tanker, your tractor trailers, that's the Class A, that's a higher level. So while we have shortages, I mean, you can see all the advertisement signs from similar industries. There's a shortage across the board when it comes to finding drivers. So, when we talk to staff, obviously when you're looking at a new position, the listed salary is probably, or the wage is one of the number one things they look at. Now, when you talk about the employees and why they stay, they do like, the variety of work, they like the benefits, the schedule, those kind of things. So it's trying to find the balance, but make the initial, point of sale to the employee, prospective employee about why they should come work here. So that's something we've been working on, but, obviously for some of these positions, if it requires a Class CDL, there's certain requirements that need to be met. And so background checks, and you mentioned earlier about some changes, coming at the state level for marijuana and things like that. That's still something, if you have a Class B or A CDL license, you have to stay clean. Those are things. And so it does narrow down the potential pool of prospective employees.
Only going to get worse.
And we have been working since last year with HCC. So if employees coming in don't have their license, they can go through their truck driving school, because a year and a half ago, the feds mandated now that anybody getting their CDLs has to go through an accredited driving school. So that's, an advantage. I think now we're about $1,800. If you're coming off the street into HCC, now we are getting, I think, some grant money, but so, for somebody that wants their license, it's attractive too, I would think.
Okay.
Is there anything else you wanted to cover?
No,
Okay. Any other comments, questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
thank you all.
Next up, FY '24 golf course budget. Good morning, Ryan.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning, Andrew Eshelman, Director of Public Works.
Ryan Crabtree, Black Rock Golf Course Manager.
Again, the golf course is one of those departments that has its own fund. This year, we're looking at an operating budget of about $1.35 million. I'll kind of give a general overview. We have several revenue sources, obviously golfing fees, there's pro shop sales, there's the food and beverage, as well as kind of the miscellaneous, which is the county's general fund contribution, as well as some rental income. On the expense side, things are divided up into the general operations. We have clubhouse operations, course maintenance, which is the largest area of expenses, and something particular that I know has been mentioned by other presenters, just the increase in material costs, and that's something that we've seen increase rather rapidly over the last year. I think, Ryan, you have a few examples of effects there.
Yeah, so for fertilizer in 2022, it was $2,500 a ton. 2023, it's $3,200 a ton. That would be 12, 24, 8. 835 fertilizer is, let's see, $1,000 a ton. In 2022, it's $2,000 a ton now. So everything's pretty much doubled. Seed, 50-pound bag of seed has gone from $85 in 2022 to $138 in 2023, which pushed us about $8,000 over budget. And then other chemicals, Phosgard, it's just an example. It was $16 a gallon, and it has jumped to $34 a gallon. So, and we use 300 gallons of that a year.
So it's kind of following the theme of, a lot of the costs particularly on the maintenance side and the materials are going up faster than maybe on the revenue side. So overall, we are looking at increasing the fees about 10% across the board to recoup some of that cost. We held off on some of those increases during the COVID time just because of the irregularity, and also we were seeing a lot of increased play, which is a good thing. Overall, I would say a lot of that has peaked in terms of the maximum play, but it's remained steady, and so we did want to be cautiously optimistic and conservative when we were preparing this budget, and thanks to Budget and Finance and Zane Garrett there, who helps with that effort.
Andrew, the fee increase, how much more revenue is that based on the prior year? Same rounds of golf.
So roughly $40,000, I think, was the number that would add to our account, and we can go through what those individual changes are if you want to hear it. But that's kind of the overview of the revenue and the expense side. I'll let Ryan talk a little bit about what's coming up this year.
Yeah, so as Andrew said, like during COVID, FY22, we had 31,000 rounds. But last year, we only had 29,000, so we did peak during COVID. As Andrew said, the board and staff have recommended 10% across the board for green fees, and that'll start April 15th. So we currently have a Tuesday morning senior league, 55 or older league that we have 88 players currently signed up for. We have 79 outings booked this year, and 47 of those are nonprofit tournaments. We have, starting in May, we have youth golf clinic through the rec program. So that'll work on all aspects of golf for kids ages 7 to 13. We also have started a junior golf series on Wednesdays in the summer, and that's from ages 7 to 19. So between seniors and juniors, we got to find a happy medium there. So
you have a half a dozen or so new 3 or 4 new programs this year.
Correct.
So yeah, we're always trying to figure out, how to offer opportunities for various ages and get the next generation involved, as well as it is one of our, if not the largest, recreational amenity for seniors in the area. I would say that the county supports, and I think that's reflected in the rates as well.
I know I'm on that board, and from the day I came in 4 years ago, over 4 years ago, I think the paid rounds of golf was like 19,000. Now they're 30,000. So somebody's doing something right. God only knows how much it cost us back then. I know inflation, but at least we're bringing in a lot more revenue, and I think I'm correct on that, aren't I, Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the general fund contribution, it was actually more back during that time. We've had a fairly successful past 4 years. This year is kind of a big jump. Again, a lot of that are things I would say, unfortunately, are beyond our control with the material costs and those increases. And obviously, a lot of the staffing that we have on the part-time side is is more impacted by the rise in minimum wage and what we need to pay. So percentage-wise, that contributes a lot more. Obviously, a project that we had before you for approval was the clubhouse renovation, so that's something we've been working on for a long time. We're really excited about. It's under construction right now, and so that's kind of the next area we're looking for additional revenue opportunities. So there's only so many rounds necessarily that we can have at the golf course, just because it is time dependent, it's weather dependent. On the restaurant side, that's again something we're excited looking at, bringing in a proposal or soliciting a proposal for restaurant services that would allow the private business to provide what we need during the day, but then also utilize the facility in the evening hours, after hours, and partner on some things there. So while we're not at the point where we're putting that into the budget and projecting, additional revenue from it, that's kind of the next thing, and the clubhouse, again, allows us to take advantage of that opportunity.
I mean, the secret is paid rounds. You think the max is, Ryan, you think the max is 32, 33,000? You think that's about all you can squeeze?
I mean, there's a couple courses down in the city that have 36 holes, and I've heard that they do 70,000. So, I mean, it's possible to get 35, but like Andrew said, it's all weather dependent.
Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Next item, FY24 transit budget. Kevin Saroon, good morning.
Andrew Eshelman, Director of Public Works. I'm going to let Kevin do most of the talking this time.
pass it off to you.
You're doing so well.
Good morning, Kevin Saroon, Washington County Transit. Andrew's been doing such a good job with all of his budget presentations. So far, you've heard about trailways, parkways, and waterways, and hallways, and maybe some railways, and highways, and driveways, and runways, and fairways. Well, today, we're here to talk about buses. I don't have a ways to throw in there. But I appreciate the opportunity. Just to talk about the transit system itself a little bit. County Commuter started back in 1972. 24 years later, 1996, I was brought on board. Here to present fiscal year 24's budget, and I personally am looking real happy towards calendar year 2024. Andrew might not be, but Kevin is. When fully staffed, we have 60 employees on the payroll, 22 vehicles, currently transporting about 360,000 trips a year. Our highest total pre-COVID was 516,000. So we're regaining from the COVID era, but we're not quite there yet. We're probably at about 70% right now. I'm not sure if we're going to hit that 516 number again in the next couple of years, because things have kind of plateaued out, but we're still trying to get there. And we travel over 486,000 miles a year. The transit program is funded with federal money, state money, local money, fares that the riders pay. We have basically 4 programs that operate that make up the entire transit system. The fixed route program, which you may know as, we call it the big bus program. ADA complimentary paratransit, which is the smaller buses that are used for individuals with disabilities. We have a program that's called, kind of a long one, it's statewide special transportation assistance program, and what that is basically a program where we sell individuals, the elderly and those with disabilities, voucher books, and then they can use those vouchers on the local taxi companies to provide transportation for themselves. And we operate the Job Opportunity Bus Shuttle, known as JOBS, the Department of Social Services. Again, quickly, for the transit budget increased for over FY23 by $248,470, or 8.61%. The increase is mainly the result of mid-year wage increases of 9.5% and proposed step and COLA. Additional increases are due to the cost of gas and diesel fuels. The general fund contribution to transit did not increase this year as a result of the use of CARES Act funding. I guess we're in our 3rd year now. Let me mention this before I get to that point, but Washington County Transit, Washington County Board of County Commissioners is the sub-grantee of federal funds that go through the Maryland Transit Administration. The state of Maryland is actually the grantee for those federal funds. So when CARES Act funding came around about 3 years ago, it actually went to the MTA, and then the MTA distributed it amongst the 23 systems in the state of Maryland. The money did not come with an end date. It was split roughly 50-50, 50% capital, 50% operating. We're using about $350,000 to $400,000 a year in operating of that money. We anticipate we will make it through 2026, FY 26, and still have a little bit of that CARES money to apply towards our budget, thus hopefully keeping, the local match, the local share level. Because it is federal money, we can't use it as a match. So the commissioners still have to provide the local match for the federal funds for the transit program, but then this CARES Act funding will pick up any additional expenses throughout the year. I wasn't going to go over all the numbers. You've heard a lot of numbers just in the past couple of minutes, but I'd be more than happy to answer any questions, any specifics, or get into any categories that you may want to talk about. When you briefly look at the budget, you'll see that, of course, payroll and employees is the highest expense to public transit.
Did I hear you say that you're not short any employees?
We are still down. We were down 12 part-time drivers. We've gotten that to 8 right now.
So you're short 8 part-time.
Still short 8. And same scenario, very few applications. I don't know if I mentioned this to the board before, but at our conference back in September, amongst our colleagues, the magic number seemed to be $22.50 an hour that they were discussing to attract bus drivers. We are at $18.92 under the current system per hour. So I don't know that we need to get to the $22.50, but that's kind of a number that's been thrown around the state.
And most of the people are part-time?
Yes, overall in the entire department, yes. In the driver arena, though, as far as office staff, maintenance staff, mechanics, they're all full-time. But we have 8 full-time drivers and 27 part-time drivers on the fixed route portion of the program.
So can I ask a couple of questions about your operations?
Absolutely.
So we have a route that goes outside of Hagerstown to Smithsburg.
Correct.
Go to Funkstown. I continue to get questions about a need for a route to Hancock that would come back through Clear Spring. Doesn't have to be every day, looking for 2 or 3 days a week. Same thing from the mayor of Boonesboro, okay? What sort of a route you could do there? It could maybe combine, 2 days a week Boonesboro, 2 days a week Hancock, in order to provide the people that would use that, that maybe don't have cars or they're senior citizens and they're not driving, whatever, the ability to, schedule appointments at Meritus or other medical facilities here in Hagerstown, get in here to the bigger shopping areas, et cetera. We discussed that, Zane, earlier, and Andrew. What would that cost us? Because, this service provided by the county, state, and federal assets is targeted providing it to predominantly lower income and handicapped or disadvantaged people in many ways. And, to me, that's part of our responsibility to find ways to take care of those people and provide them access to things that they can't afford. So what would the cost be for, just say, a route to Hancock, Clear Spring, 3 days a week?
I can get you an exact number, but here's what I can offer. Here's what I can offer you today. Before we would consider any expansion, the biggest issue that we have would be drivers. Not only would we have the 8 drivers that we need to fulfill that are currently open, we would need additional drivers above that 8 in order to open up new routes heading out to the outlying areas. Equipment. Vehicles, whether it be a smaller bus, a larger bus, we're at our limits right now, so we would have to increase vehicles.
Can that be accomplished through further grant requests?
Yes, but it's going to take time. I mean, it's...
Okay,
Yeah, but who approves these rights? Because Boonesboro's been asking every year I've been a commissioner for that right.
Right. So maybe I'll step in a little bit. I think the next 5 years have the opportunity to have Washington County Transit progressed more than maybe the last 15. So there, every 5 years, a transit development plan where we look at things like route expansion, ridership, where future demand is, how you're going to pay for things. And so that process will start, I believe, this fall. So that incorporates some of the things we're talking about. In years past, if the reason would have been, maybe not demand, we don't have the funding, it looks like in the next foreseeable future, at least with the current administration in Annapolis, that funding may not be the limiting factor. We have some preliminary information coming in about what our local grant amounts may be, and it appears that they're going to be increasing. So it wouldn't necessarily need to be where the answer before was, how do you do it? We could do it, the county would have to pay 100% of the cost. Moving forward, it may be that isn't the case. We don't know enough to provide that answer today, but, just like we mentioned earlier with the highway department about the changes towards zero emissions and things like that, on the transit side, there's greater emphasis towards expanding those types of services, converting to transportation opportunities that allow for the zero emissions and electric vehicles and that sort of things. So you're seeing greater emphasis in funding from the state and federal level towards those programs. So all that to say, anything's possible. Kevin's right, drivers is the first limitation. You have to procure the buses, those kind of things. Those are the first two steps. And the third thing is, do you pay for it and at what level? But that's kind of been the limiting factor before was the cost.
So the vehicles have generally been supported greatly by grants.
Correct.
Okay, so that's, so we could start that process and, hopefully down the road, if we have consensus or a vote here to do that. And then secondarily, it seems to me that we're going to need to become more competitive on the wage scale, even for part-time drivers of buses that are, need to be trained and reliable people. And you said the average in that field is about $22. So, we're going to need to come in with some adjustments there probably. And you need to start those things earlier than when you actually are going to start the planned service. And you have to fill the gap of the 8 that you're short right now and then set the stage for that. So I think, again, I talk about setting conditions for future success. Those are things that we could start now because it might take 3 years to get the grant.
Just to give you a number, Smithsburg, we go 5 times a day. It's $134,000 a year. It's $73 per hour. So just, there's a real loose number, but just to give you an idea of what a rural route would actually cost. Now, that's just for fixed route. The complimentary ADA paratransit that I mentioned is also needed to be offered if federal dollars are used on the fixed route. So that almost doubles that $134,000 to go to an outlying area like that. So again, I can get you a much more detailed number, but just to give you an idea. Grant funding, we apply through the state, as I did. I came in 2 weeks ago with the grant application, if you recall. We will find out those funds come July that are available to us for fiscal year '24. And then the same process takes place for vehicles. Of course, we would need to have a needs assessment developed as to why we're requesting the monies or the funds for them. Real quick, a program called the Hopewell Express that Community Action Council is currently running. We started that, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago now, with some seed money through what was then called Local Management Board. The purpose of that was to establish data that we can submit to the MTA for funding to continue that program. The funding extension was not granted to us. Community Action Council, through their grant process, came up with some funding, and they actually ended up taking over that program, and that's the bus that goes out to Hopewell Road and services those distribution centers. So seed money to start, like you're speaking about, on a non-federal level is a faster way to get there. When we apply for the federal funding and start using federal funding, that's when the time starts ticking.
Well, we're going to rely on you and Andrew to help set the way forward, okay?
Yeah, and I was just ready to back that up with, you're going to have some of the complaints I heard where part-time drivers were making more than full-time. And so that right away, if you have to increase this is another problem you guys are gonna have to figure out, I guess. If you have to increase the part-time, they hire people, that puts a bigger wage disparity between those and the full-time.
Right.
So, you know, that's,
And depending upon how this develops, it could lead to additional full-time positions too.
Right.
Not just all part-time, but absolutely.
We look at, if we're paying $22 for here, and then we got your other department that's, what, at $18.50 on truck drivers.
Correct. Right now, a full-time transit operator is a grade 7, which is the same as an MEO2 at highways. The part-time employees are actually a grade 6, but they have a differential applied, which is, yes, if you look at an hourly basis just on that pay, there may be some that are higher, but when you factor in the benefits and everything else, that's where, you know, it's not the same. But it certainly is a challenge on the staffing side, and we're not the only, you know, local government or transit operator that's in this situation. And so, yes, moving forward, I think, again, the next 5 years, you are pretty much rewriting the playbook on how you operate your transit system, from the types of vehicles, the way you provide your service, and that's probably even a conversation for, you know, another day and what we get into in the transit development plan.
And I'll just say, I mean, staff has recognized this issue with part-timers, not just in transit, but in all the departments. And as Andrew just mentioned, we did come last year and asked this board to create some differentials for several, the part-time people, and that has worked some. Obviously, it hasn't solved the problem. I know staff, budget and finance, we're continuing to look at that issue because, you know, you go one way and then it creates other issues in other areas. So we are looking at that, and we recognize that is something that we have to continue to work on. And I think, I see Michelle sort of stand up over there. I think she wanted to say something, but I know she's been working hard on this along with Andrew and other senior staff, so.
Michelle Gordon, Chief Financial Officer. We did include revisions to the salary scale for the part-time positions, and particularly to build in any of those premium pays or differentials so that they become part of the base pay. So those changes were included in the fiscal year 24 budget, and they'll take effect on July the 1st of 2024.
okay.
Other comments? I will note on a positive vein that hats off to Fleet Services. The fleet looks mighty good these days. They're shiny and clean, and
They're still new.
so.
Hey, thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's a good
Thanks.
representative in our community.
Thank you.
Next item, proclamation for Fair Housing Month, and Rachel Souders.
I don't think everybody's here yet. I don't think everybody's here yet. I think you're expecting some others, right? Oh, they're both here? Okay.
Okay.
If they're both here, then we're good to go.
Come on down.
Come on down.
Come on down.
That's, I guess.
Rachel Souter, Senior Grant Manager, Office of Grant Management.
Good morning. My name's Carly Ferguson. I'm the Executive Director for Hagerstown Home Store.
And I'm Sean Griffith. I'm here with CAC, Action Council.
And this is just for the commissioners to, as they do each year, present a proclamation to agencies for the Fair Housing Month of April.
I think, President
Yes,
Farr,
I have the proclamation. I didn't know if any of the commissioners, John, or you wanted to say anything, or?
Oh, no, it's an honor to have you here today, and I know President Barr has the proclamation, and I think he's going to
Yeah, we'll
present
go
it
over
to
to the
them.
flags and make this presentation. I didn't know if, then we'll have all the commissioners come up and do a photo op.
Yeah, you're gonna do the proclamation.
Do the proclamation
You
first.
want to do it?
We're confusing, aren't we?
Proud of order.
How about if I delegate it to Commissioner Wagner?
Go ahead, John.
Years from COVID, so.
You wanna just come up to the flags?
Thank you, guys.
I'm not sure what happened with that.
Tri-County Council, through us, awarded us, the Community Action Council, money money for that bus, right? Bus route. I think it was 250 or 325, something like that.
The commissioners, on behalf of them, I'd like to present this proclamation, Fair Housing Month, April 2023. Whereas April 2023 marks the 55th anniversary of the passage of Title 8 of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, commonly known as the Federal Fair Housing Act. And whereas the Fair Housing Act emphasizes a national policy of fair housing designed to protect Americans from discrimination in the sale, rental, and financing of housing based on color, race, sex, national origin, disability, family status, and religion. Whereas equal housing is an important component of family and community health and stability. And whereas housing choice impacts our children's access to education, our ability to seek and retain employment options, the cultural benefits we enjoy, the extent of our exposure to crime and drugs, and the quality of health care we receive in emergencies. And whereas the laws of this nation and our state seek to ensure such equality of choice for all transactions involving housing. Whereas ongoing education, outreach, and monitoring are key to raising awareness of fair housing principles, practices, rights, and responsibilities. Therefore, we, the Board of County Commissioners of Washington County, Maryland, do hereby recognize April as Fair Housing Month, signed by your commissioners. Okay. I'll let you. Okay, commissioners, you want to come up front here?
Sure.
I'll let you hold it.
Oh, yay. Absolutely. I have a property management background, so.
Thank you, sir.
Get in tight.
So awesome.
Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, nice to meet you.
No, sir. Yes. You did this.
We voted on
Yeah, basically, I see what she was.
It was so nice.
I think on the list. Stumbled. Put it down on your list of grievances.
We're good.
We're good?
Yeah, we're in pretty good shape. John stepping out. Okay. You sure? Well, we do. Still got 3 of us. Yeah. Good? I was waiting on John to come back in. Okay. We'll go ahead and move forward. The 4 commissioners are here. Next item is 2023 Housing Bond Allocation Transfer. Good morning, Jill.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jill Baker, Director of the Department of Planning and Zoning. So that proclamation gave us a nice little prelude into our next item here, which is the Housing Bond Allocation Transfer. Every year, the state of Maryland provides a housing bond allocation to the different jurisdictions across the state of Maryland to help people become homeowners. either first time or in general, just new homeowners. So what they do is that each year they invite local partners into the statewide pool for the bonds for these first-time home buyers. And then they use this money then in the Maryland Mortgage Program to help first-time home buyers get into their new homes. We put this money, what we do is we're asking to transfer this money back to the state of Maryland for them to implement these programs. We just simply don't have the resources locally to handle all of the different aspects of the Maryland Mortgage Program that have to be handled. We just don't have the staff for it. So what we do is we transfer that money back to the state, and they do that for us here in Washington County. So the money stays here. We're just asking them to basically handle the semantics of it. Within your packet, you'll see the standard letter that we send every year. And within the agenda report form, you'll also see the minimums for acquisition costs stated by the Maryland Mortgage Program. That's all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
They don't charge us an admin fee then, huh?
No, sir.
So do you know that the allocation that's given to us actually is used in Washington County? How much of it, or is it fully utilized?
It's fully utilized here.
It is full, and how do we get any insight into how many people and where and how?
So if you look under the discussion in the agenda report form, we talk in there about how many units over the last several years that have been used to actually gain, that have actually been gained by using these funds. So in 2020, there were 112 units. In 2021, there were 64 units. And in 2022, there were another 64 units. So that's spread out throughout Washington County. That could be within any of the jurisdictions, any of the incorporated municipalities as well.
Okay, so that's 64 units?
64 units in 2022, yeah. 64 in 2021 and 112 in 2020.
So 64 units was $11 million?
Yeah, that's total cost because the Maryland Mortgage Program doesn't give you necessarily the full amount of the mortgage. It gives you at least the down payment and some of the costs toward closing.
Okay, so we get $6 million?
We get $6 million this year.
And we allocate that. How much of it actually goes to the home purchasers?
All $6 million, as far as I know, goes back to the home buyers. That's what they use. They administrate that $6 million to go to whoever applies for the program.
I'm just trying to do some math here. 11 million divided by 64 units. Let me just, sorry to do this to you right here, but $171,000 per. And you said it's just going to closing costs and down payments.
And everyone varies too, depending upon your eligibility. You may get more money out of it, you may get less money out of it. So it's kind of a variable thing.
We'll get a percentage of the mortgage? Mm-hmm. Okay, so you can get up to maybe 75% of the mortgage? Mm-hmm. Okay. And do we have any breakdown as to the demographics of how this is being?
I do not. No.
Can we get that?
I can ask for that, absolutely.
Okay. Okay, we appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure.
Other questions or comments?
Is that a motion or motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Next item, purchase 2023 transit van for the Sheriff's Office. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Rick Curry, Director of Purchasing.
Welcome, Sheriff.
Washington County Sheriff's Office.
Subject before you is the purchase of a 2023 transit van for the sheriff's office. Recommendation is to request the board approval for the sheriff's office to purchase one 2023 passenger van from Hagerstown Ford of Hagerstown, Maryland, in the amount of $53,705. Department is requesting to purchase this van because the van that they currently have meets the county's guideline for replacement as shown in the ARF here. The department has made several attempts through the procurement process to purchase a van, and with no success. Either the van was canceled by the manufacturer, or the van would be sold from under the department by the vendor. You have the quote from Hagerstown Ford for this van. This van is available. It is on Hagerstown Ford's lot. If we are to purchase this van, we need to move quickly. Any questions?
Does it have blindside indicator for safety purposes? I don't see that listed.
I can't answer that either.
So basically,
It will have cameras on it, on the outside
saw all
and
of
on the inside, that we'll put on later.
so basically, you can't get a van, and you can't get one, so to get one quick, Hagerstown Ford.
These are the two that you approved for us to purchase last year.
But you
and
couldn't
not
get
able
them.
To find them.
Yeah.
This is the first one we've been able to locate.
All right, motion to approve.
I second, yep.
Okay. Motion is second to approve as submitted. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Very good.
Oh, yeah. Okay, we ready? We ready? Yeah. Okay, next item, resolution assigning to the county administrator power and duty to attest to the county seal in certain circumstances. Kurt?
Bond counsel to the county has requested that the county commissioners assign to the county administrator the power and duty to attest to the county seal in the event of a vacancy in the position of the county clerk, or in the event of the absence, disability, or unavailability of an appointed county clerk. This would simply supplement the powers and duties that are set forth in the Code of Public Local Laws for the county administrator, and would explicitly authorize him to attest to the county seal. Him or her, attest to the county seal.
Second.
Motion second. Call for a vote. Any questions?
Technically, that's a motion to adopt the resolution.
Okay. Motion second. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. And we're ready for a recess.
Go to recess.
Okay, at this time, we'll take a recess, and reconvene after our return from our joint meeting with the school board at 11:30.